Alright, so today's topic is basics of VMware ESXi. So first of all, you should know what is ESXi, and prior to that there are certain concepts that should be aware of before going to ESXi. So ESXi is basically a part of virtualization technology. So virtualization is, I think everyone is aware, but I would just like to shed some light on it. So virtualization is the process of virtualizing your hardware resources, okay, to take maximum usage, to maximum utilization of the resource, okay. Because in earlier stage before virtualization, what was that? Any server that we are using, that was not utilizing all the resources. It can go up to 15 or 20%, maximum 50%, but still 50% is underutilized, right? And we are spending a lot of money on it. Now to take advantage of the technology or the resource that we have, we brought virtualization in picture, where we have certain tools, certain things which is giving you the ability to use all the resources in your system, okay, by sharing them. Okay. So how it works? On each hardware device we run software or operating system, because see in it there are like two things. I think in the beginning you have heard about operating system, system software and application software, right? System software is basically a operating system. Application software which is running on your operating system, right? So here I'm just talking about the system software. Operating system, which is a hypervisor. Now hypervisor is just a layer, operating system running on your hardware and having direct access of your hardware device, and it is virtualizing it to use it as much as we can, right? So what type of hypervisors we have, and what technologies and what product that we use under that category. So there are two types of hypervisors, type 1 and type 2. Type 1 is basically a bare metal that's run on the hardware directly, and type 2 is a hosted one which is running on your existing operating system. So type 1, you can say VMware ESXi is a type 1, then Citrix Zen is a type 1, and Microsoft's Hyper-V is also type 1, and it is a type 2 as well. How? Because for Hyper-V we already have an operating system which is only on working as a Hyper-V. It's just a code, okay, which is running on your system, and you install it. It doesn't have any other thing, it's just a Hyper-V. So that's a type 1. When I say type 2, that means it's a operating system like you say Windows 2008, 2012, 2016 standard or enterprise or data center, which have all other features as well, including Hyper-V. When I say the full-fledged server operating system which have all other roles as well with Hyper-V, in that situation Hyper-V is a hosted solution, hosted hypervisor, because it is using the layer of your operating system, then it is running. When I say Hyper-V running on direct hardware, when it is actually running as an operating system, it is a type 1. And if I say type 2, then from VMware it is VMware Workstation, Fusion from VMware as well for Mac, okay. So these are the type 2. From Citrix it is, do we have from something from Citrix? Zen server, it is type 1, right? Type 2 there is nothing. Yeah. So from Oracle we have a VirtualBox as a type 2. From Microsoft it is again Hyper-V, and earlier it was a virtual PC. there was also type 2. So they are dependent on the existing operating system. So if anything goes wrong with the operating system, then the type 2 hypervisor will not survive. Right? And it is not able to utilize all the resources because there are certain resources which are being utilized by your operating system as well. And in the operating system, when you configure the type 2 hypervisor, you can specify that how much resource this hypervisor can use. Right? Because let's say if it is utilizing all the resources, then the actual operating system will not be able to survive. Right? So in the properties of the software, you can specify how much RAM of the host it can utilize to virtualize, how much CPU it can use to virtualize. Right? So that way you can configure it. So solely today we will be discussing about the ESXi, what is ESXi and how it works, advantages and all. So ESXi is basically a product from VMware. It's a part of vSphere suite, and vSphere suite is basically a collection of lots of softwares where ESXi is the hypervisor. Then there is a vCenter, which is a software. It's not a hypervisor, it's a software, a management software which gives you the ability to manage multiple ESXis and utilizing certain features that vCenter gives to manage the environment. Right? Then we get update manager as well, part of the vSphere suite.
Yes.
Okay. We get the log collector as part of the vSphere suite, and some other features which are not part of it, but yes, they are part of the VMware product, catalog. So let's talk about the ESXi. Before ESXi, there was a version what we call ESX. So in the beginning it was ESX, now it is ESXi. What is the difference between ESX and ESXi? Yeah. So in ESX, we used to have a service console to manage the ESXi, the hypervisor. But in ESXi, the service console is removed. We can easily manage that.
Okay.
Right? And because see, there was a management port or console. Service console is basically management console to manage the ESXi. Right? Because it is, when you see it locally on the machine, it looks different. It have its own environment where you can manage it. Right? To manage the ESXi, you should have a vSphere client. That can be a Windows client, can be a Linux. It can be on Linux, so it's a Linux client as well. But it's basically a software, installable software. And in the recent releases, 6.0 and after that, the vSphere software, a client software, is also not required, because VMware have incorporated that in the installation. So when you access the IP address of the ESXi in browser, it will give you a UI. Okay, there you can easily manage that. You don't need to install anything else. If you have installed the ESXi 6.0 and after that, then you don't need to install anything else to manage that. You must have a browser. You browse that in your browser and you will get a web console of your ESXi. There you can manage it. And if you look at the console, you will have the view of something like legacy BIOS. You see, you have the option. Yes. So it is very basic options where you just manage the configure IP address, how many LAN card you want to enable, host name,
DNS,
and DNS prefixes,
suffixes,
and enabling SSH shell.
Yes.
For troubleshooting purposes, set a password. So these are the basic things that you require before managing it.
Yes.
Right? Because if you're installing and you're not assigning IP address, how can you manage it? So at least basic functions should be there, so that's ways you can manage it. Now let me show you example how you can do that. So I have ESXi 6.5 image. I'm going to resume this installation. So I'm just going to show you that how it look like, how you can do the basic, operation, like setting up, basic configuration, how you can easily access it, how you can manage it basically, and then I'll show you that how you can access it through a browser and manage it. Okay. To create virtual machine, to manage the virtual machine, this console will not help. For that you must have a vSphere console, vSphere Web Client console. So it is your basic console. That means it looks like that you're standing in front of the machine. Okay, so it is basically VMware ESXi 6.5 VM kernel release build 7388607. Okay, it's running on because here I have virtualized ESXi.
Yes.
Okay, but actually if it is running on a physical box, it will show you the manufacturer name. Here it is VMware INC, VMware Virtual Platform. Otherwise it will show you the name of maybe it is Dell server or whatever the model that you are running on. Okay, then the configuration, 2 Intel Core i5 processors here. I have assigned 4 GB RAM. Then it is showing you the 4 GB RAM. Then the IP address where you can manage it. So it is getting IP address from DHCP. If you want to manage that, like assign the IP, then you have option like type F2, okay, to manage it. Press F2, provide credentials of root, and now you will have the view to manage it. So here you can configure the password. If you want to configure the password, okay, the old password, enter. Now password has been changed. Configuring lockdown mode. Lockdown mode is only visible when the ESXi is being managed by the vCenter. Okay. If the machine is not being managed by the vCenter, then the lockdown mode will not be shown here. What does it mean by the lockdown mode? It means if the ESXi is being managed by the vCenter and you are restricting others to manage this ESXi directly from the console or from standalone ESXi management, you're blocking. So when I enable the lockdown mode, that means this ESXi host can be managed only from the vCenter. It can't be managed standalone.
Okay.
Right?
It can be managed in band.
Yeah.
It can only be managed out of band.
Yeah. So that means you can only manage it by the vCenter. Because here I'm just managing it standalone. Right? Then configure management network, where you are specifying that how many see, if you click on the network adapters, it will show you that how many LAN card it have. Let's say 4, 5, 6. Because in the enterprise servers there are like 6 to 8 LAN cards, depends on the configuration, and how many LAN card you want to enable and manage them. Right? Because here it is only one LAN card. If I say I have like 8 physical LAN card on the server, but only 4 have the cable connected, then it will show you 8 and 4 will show you connected. 4 are disconnected. Then there is if you want to select, it is a space button. It is unselected. It's selected. That means which one I'm using. So you can select here that which one you want to use. See the details. Click on press D. You'll be able to see that what is the name, what is the MAC address, what is the connection status, and on which virtual switch it is connected. So it is used by the virtual switch 0. We might have multiple virtual switches. It depends on your configuration. You can specify the VLAN as well. That's optional. VLAN is basically virtual LAN.
Yes, sir.
You know. Then IP4 configuration. You can disable the IP4 configuration management network. You can enable that, dynamic or static. If you want to set static, select it here and specify the IP errors. So I'm selecting the IP errors. Okay. 200. All okay. Hit enter. IPv6. I want to disable. If I want to disable, then I need restart.
Yes.
It is saying okay, use dynamic IPv6 addresses. If you want to set static, again you can select this and specify the IPv6 address. DNS configuration. Here you can specify that okay, what is the primary DNS. It is only required when you are joining this ESXi in domain.
Yes.
You can also join the ESXi in domain. As other computers joins the domain, ESXi can be part of domain as well. For that, you have to specify the primary DNS server, alternate DNS server, and the host name, the computer name that you want to register this in your Active Directory, right? So you can specify that here. Then custom DNS suffix. That means, let's say I want to specify my domain name. Okay, so let me say it will be part of this domain. Okay, so that means if I say name would be ESX01, so the full name would be ESX01.ramtheipglue.com, right? If I want to save, hit yes, escape, then press yes to save these changes. Restart management network. If you have, yes.
इसको डोमेन में रख के हमें बेनिफिट क्या हुआ? इसको तो मशीन्स होस्ट करते हैं ना?
Yes. Okay. The question is why we want to join in domain.
डोमेन का जो बेसिक पर्पस किसी भी ऑर्गेनाइजेशन में होता है वो डिफरेंट पॉलिसीज को अप्लाई करना होता है एक साथ कि हमको अलग-अलग सिस्टम पे ना जाना पड़े. बट ये डिफरेंट है.
It's not only that. It's I have a user created in my domain and I want to allow that user to manage the ESXi, right, using the same credential that he or she is using the domain. I just need to pull that user in ESXi and specify the permissions there. Then the same credential which he or she is using in the domain, they will work in your ESXi management, right? So I don't need to create separate user account in ESXi. I just need to pull those user account from the directory and you can just simply assign the roles in your ESXi, because ESXi have a separate system that okay, what thing she or he can manage, so you can specify, but you don't need to create a separate user and separate password for that. So whenever the user is changing password in Active Directory, it will change here as well, because it is authenticating from your Active Directory.
सर एक्टिव डायरेक्टरी की पॉलिसीज पे वर्क करेंगी?
Policy depends. If this machine is compliant with that policy, definitely it will work.
It is not a Windows, so it does work.
See, in the Active Directory, whatever machine which is able to join in domain, that means there are certain things which works, right? It's not possible that okay, everything which is working in Windows will work here, but maybe certain policies will work. And the prime objective is not to apply the policy. Prime objective is to manage the server, manage the system, the user management, the credential management. If I say this is only one server, if I say I have 100 servers in my environment, right? And if I have to assign permission to manage this server, the complete server, to a user, I need to create user 100 times, right? But here what I'll do, I'll add the ESXi in vCenter and I'll basically manage, I'll access that user from the vCenter and give the permission to the user, right? And in case if the user changes the password, I need to update that every time in the ESXi. No, because the password is different and he need to remember two passwords. One is from the Active Directory, one from the ESXi. Now I'm binding it with the domain, so whatever password is using in Active Directory, same is going to be used in the ESXi. Right? So
जैसे रूट से हम लोगों ने लिया था शुरू में, जैसे रूट क्रेडेंशियल्स से, उसकी जगह डोमेन यूज कर सकते हैं.
Yes, it will take time till 4. If you want to test the management network, you can do that. Hit enter. It will start pinging with the devices, okay, or the IP address that I have mentioned here. Yes, for the host name, it is not going to resolve because it is not in the Active Directory. If you want to restore the network settings, you can do that. Here you can restore the network settings, you can restore the standard switch, you can restore the virtual distributed switches, although they are not here, so that's why it's not showing. Then configuring keyboard not needed. Troubleshooting options. Here you can enable the ESXi shell and SSH. When you enable the SSH, that means you can manage this ESXi using port number 22, Puri, anything. Okay.
SSH client.
Yes, because there are certain things which are not possible from the UI.
Yes.
You can go with the command line and you can perform them. And there is to enable the ESXi shell, how it will impact. If you disable that, what is the impact? The impact is that you will not be able to use all the shell commands in the ESXi. So if you enable that, then you will be able to execute the ESX CLI, the command line. Under that, there are a lot of options that you will get. So if you enable that, then you will be able to use that CLI. So that's it for this. You can view the system log as well here. So if you press 1, you will be able to see the syslog. If you press 2, VM kernel, 3, config, 4, management agent, 5, virtual center agent. That means if the ESXi is part of the vCenter, you will be able to see all the logs when it is communicating with the vCenter, what is being pushed from the vCenter to the ESXi, right? And 6, VMware ESXi observation log, right? So that's the part of managing it from the console. That's DCUI. Now I'm going to show you that how we can manage that from the browser by creating virtual machines and all. So here we go. So IP is 192.168.0.200. It is not working. Let's see what's going on. Why it's not working? 200, right? Let's see what's happening. It is pinging, but it's not. Oh, got it. Just got it.
नहीं हुआ
एक मशीन पे शुरू
Okay, click on advanced. Now you got the login screen. So specify the credentials root, the password that I changed here.
Sir, your options are 6.5 में
6.0 and after that 6.0 and 6.5. Now I have enabled the ESXi shell and the SSH, so it's showing the warning here, and they're only available when you are doing troubleshooting, because if you are enabling it all the time, then you're exposing the security.
Okay.
Right? So it's better you disable it. So here in services, disable the shell, and again from you can go there as well. In the action services, you can disable the SSH.
Okay.
Right? So this is the view of vCenter, how you can how it looks like. What is the version? It's a version 6.5 update 1. So it's basically fully patched. It is not being managed by any vCenter, so it is normal. Uptime is 5.38 days. Then manufacturer, model, how many CPUs are there, how much memory it is, virtual flash, networking, host name, IP address, how many IP addresses it have, okay, DNS servers, default gateway, host adapters, which VM network it is connected, how many data sources are there, what is the capacity of it. So it is giving you the information about everything which is required, okay, for the ESXi. So image, profile, HA if it is configured, vMotion if it is configured, system information, BIOS version, performance, right? So everything that you need here, you can view it. If you want to manage it in the action, you can manage it like create or register in a virtual machine. You can do it from here, and there are multiple places where you can manage it. You can do it. So here you can manage it. Right click, you can create or register a virtual machine. Create means you are creating a new machine. Register means you already have the VMDK file and the VMX file. VMX file basically a configuration file of virtual machine. VMDK is basically a disk where the complete data it is.
Yes.
Okay, so to register a virtual machine, you need a .vmx file. So if you already have this, you just need to click here and specify if you want to create or register existing virtual machine. When you select this, next you have to locate the path where the VMX file is, right? Because we already have virtual machine running. So let me just do one thing. Let me just shut down this machine. Power off.
सर तो काफी सारे फॉर्मेट सपोर्ट होता है ना VMX, VMDF के
Configuration file is VMX. We cannot register the virtual machine by just mentioning the VMDK. We just need a VMX file where it have the configuration. Right? So I'm just unregistering this virtual machine. That means the virtual machine is actually sitting in the data store, but it's not showing here. So create, register an existing virtual machine. Next, click on it. Here it is not giving you option to select anything here. It's just giving you option to select the VMX, right? Select it here. Okay, select, next, and finish. Now it will register this virtual machine here. If you want to create a virtual machine, you can right click and create the virtual machine. Create the virtual machine here. Next, specify the name of the virtual machine. Okay. Then compatibility, ESXi 6.5 virtual machine. You can mention anything else like 6.0, 5.5. Let's say if you are creating here and you are planning to move it to the other ESXi which is not running on 6.5 version, maybe on 6.0, 5.5, you can do that. Or sometime there are certain operating systems which are not compatible with 6.5, then you can select the family.
So is it backward compatible?
Yes, it is. Yes. So guest OS, you can specify Windows, Linux, Mac OS, or anything else. So if I say Windows, then I have to select the version. Sometime it is possible that, let's say if I select 2012, right? And I am installing 2016 on this. I have select the guest OS version 2012 and I have installed 2016. In that situation, it will give you a message It is not an error, it's a warning that the guest operating system that you're running is not the guest OS version that you have selected. So it's mismatching. Right? So you have to update that here. So that way the VMware will be, coordinating betterly with the machine and will be able to use all the functionalities. Right? So I select next, then specify the data store where you want to store. If you have multiple data stores, you can specify here. And I think everyone is aware that what is data store, right?
Yes.
So it's basically a hard disk where you store all your operating systems, virtual machines. Next, the disk size specified greater than the amount available in the data store. So it says 40 GB. Maximum size it can be 9.63 GB. That means the data store doesn't have enough space. So let's say I am specifying 6 GB, which is now okay, right? And the RAM I am saying 1024 MB. Number of CPU, I only have 2 CPUs to assign. I am just assigning 1 CPU. Then the location will be here, the data store 1. Then thin provisioning, thick or thick. Thin provisioning means when I'm saying 9.63, see, I've selected thick provisioning, and that's why it's not allowing me to mention it 40 gig. If I say thin provisioning and I say 300 GB, says greater than this.
Amount available on this.
Okay, if I say 100 GB, again say
So maximum size is 9.63 GB.
the disk size is greater than the amount available in the disk space. Okay, fine, but it'll allow you to do that. It's not an error, it's a warning. When I say thick, it is a warning. It's basically a critical error, and it will not let you allow this. It will not allow you to specify 300 gig. But if I say thin provisioning, it will allow me to complete this, and I can install the operating system as well, because thin provisioning means it is just taking it that okay, you can go up to 300 gigs and it will not consume the complete size that you are specifying here.
It will not log the space.
It will not log the space. It will only use the space.
But sir, ये तो maximum size is 10 GB approximately.
Fine. It is only, thin provisioning means when you are planning something and you don't have the space in current time, but you're planning to have it maybe 2 weeks time or 3 weeks time,
Okay.
right? But you cannot wait for 3 weeks to configure it. So what you're doing is you're configuring the virtual machine with the size that you're planning, and later on you can add the space. Because here the data store is showing 9.63 GB. I know that after 3 weeks time I will be able to have 500 gigs or maybe 2 TB size added in the same data store. Although I know that okay, in 3 weeks times I will not be able to utilize maybe 5 GB as well. Then fine, right? And later on I'll be able to add 2 TB. Then fine, the issue will not be there.
And in that case, sir, I guess thin provision would be better than thick.
But yes, but what the warning it is saying, the disk space, the disk size specified is greater than the amount available in the data store. Disk space overcommitted can consume all space in the data store and could block the virtual machine. You should increase the data store's capacity or reduce the disk size before proceeding. It is basically recommending you. It will not stop you to do it. That's why we enable monitoring on these data stores. So that when the data store is consuming the all space, it will alert you. When it left with the 10%, it alerts you so that you can increase the size. Right? And if you say thick provisioning, that means it will commit the size that you are mentioning the time of configuration. Right? Is it clear?
Yes.
Okay. I will not discuss the shares here.
थिक प्रोविजन में भी दो ऑप्शन है, जैसे
Lazy
लेजी
zeroed and
zeroed
eagerly zeroed.
Lazily zeroed, eagerly zeroed. That's not that we are not going to discuss right now. We'll discuss it later. So LSI logic SAS is a basically SCSI controller, USB 2.0. The network that you have to select here, the VM network. Maybe you may have like 2 or 3 network, depending on the structure that you have. The host device. Now you can specify the CD drive. So here I am saying it is data store ISO. In that situation, you have to specify you have to basically copy the ISO image in your data store.
Yes.
So I have selected this here. Select. Then the video card. Next.
So यहाँ पे जो डेटा स्टोर की लोकेशन है, बेसिकली द लोकेशन विच इज ऑन दी सिस्टम्स लोकल ड्राइव.
It is actually the data store where you are installing the operating system.
So data store is that na
That's mounted in ESXI.
ESXi.
Yes.
That's
So you have to upload the ISO image in that data store,
okay.
and then you select it here and finish. Now we have another machine, Win 10, right? Then we have here the storage. How much data stores? How many data stores you have?
We can also configure
Sure.
data store like SAN and NAS with it.
Yes. So when you click on new data store, create new VMFS, add and extend it to existing VMFS data stores, expand an existing VMFS data store extend, or mount NFS data stores. Right? If you create that, next it will basically find the data stores, the available space. You can select the mount the NFS data store as well. So same thing, you will specify the name, NFS server, NFS share name, and the version NFS 3 or NFS 4. The difference between the NFS and the VMFS, because NFS is basically a share that you can mount on your ESXi, and it will not format that NFS share. Whatever you have in your NFS share, it will mount here, right? But when you say VMFS, it is basically a file system that is proprietary to the ESXi. So whenever you mount any share, any storage, be it a LUN, be it a fiber channel storage, it basically formats that storage and creates a file system for you.
VMPFS.
And because I remember one of the client where the NFS data store is mounted. So when you extend the space from SAN, you don't need to extend the space in the ESXi, right? Because you just need to extend the space of that NFS share from the SAN, and it will automatically reflect in ESXi. You just need to refresh it. But in case of LUN, you need to extend the space from the SAN. Then it will basically show you the extended space as an extent in the property of data store. There you have to extend your data store, right? So that's the difference. In the networking, there are like VM network and management network. There is only one switch and 2 network.
This
So-
is virtual switch.
Yeah, so basically virtual switch is basically only one virtual switch. Virtual switch is basically a switch, as like a physical switch, that's communicating your devices. Number of ports, how many ports you have, it depends on in the property. So basically, let me see, because in 5.1 I remember there was a limit of 120 ports on the each.
1531 ports.
So it is ports, yeah. So it's 1536 ports available in the 6.5. So attached VM 2, 0 active. So there are settings that you can do. So in basically a VM kernel port, it is this one management network, and this is the VM network. So there are 2 different networks, right?
So we can have only one virtual switch, or
We can have multiple. Yes. So
one is supporting 1500 hypervisors.
Port, yes, yes. It's pretty high number, right? Pretty high. Yeah. So it is in the enterprise level. When you say that you have a ESXi, you have a physical box with 768 GB RAM. And I say I have a box with a 768 GB RAM, right? And I have 4 physical processors with 24 cores or maybe more than that. In that situation, you can run a lot of virtual machines, right?
Yes.
And you might have that one virtual machine is connected with the 3 switches, depending on the requirement. So that means one virtual machine is consuming 3 ports.
Mm.
So it depends, how you are designing your environment, how you are connecting it, and it is the maximum availability. It is not that okay, you have to consume those. If you are consuming 50, that's fine.
Mm.
So it is giving the ability when you are preparing for data center, right?
Data center.
Then in that situation you need that kind of capacity.
Yes.
So that's something that we have with the ESXi 6.5.
So we can also team the NIC team
Mm.
policy.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yes, that's with the physical switches,
Physical switches.
physical ports basically.
Physical interface.
Yes. So we can do the NIC teaming as well. We can do the failover as well.
Yes, sir. Yes.
Active, passive.
Load
Okay,
balancing.
load balancing as well. Specify the MTU as well. So there are a lot of things that you can do here.
For link discovery, there is CDP.
Yes.
We can also use LLDP
LLDP, I think, I'm not sure it supports or not.
because it's a Cisco proprietary protocol.
Yes.
CDP is proprietary.
CDP is Cisco proprietary, LLDP is not.
LLDP
is
LLDP is
open.
open standard.
So you can specify the security policies here as well. So there are a lot of things that you have.
Mm.
So it's enough for today. Do you have any questions?
Creating, it's the most easiest part, I guess.
What?
Creating the machine is the most easiest part.
सर vCenter की जो मिनिमम रिक्वायरमेंट्स है अभी भी 8 GB है RAM